Tonight, stalled plans for a new urgent care clinic and another looming issue for the province's healthcare system.
Allied health professionals have reached an impasse in their collective agreement talks with the provincial government. A conversation with Gord Piercy, the president, that's coming up on Here and Now. Today is the last day the public can weigh in on their concerns about the mega hydrogen ammonia project slated for parts of the province's west coast. Some feel that the province is rushing this whole process. We'll have more tonight on Here and Now.
Now the big fella, or the big girl I should say, she came up like she owned the place.
I'm here in Glovertown, where there's an unusually high number of bears roaming through town this fall. We'll have that story coming up.
This is CBC Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. Plans for a new urgent care clinic in St. John's are up in the air. The health department had promised to open it by next spring. Here and Now's Peter Cowan looks at the government's new plan.
If you've sprained your ankle or you have a high fever and you need urgent medical help, this is one of the only options available, a hospital emergency room. But it can also come with long wait times and overstretched staff. That's where an urgent care clinic is supposed to help. Government has plans to create one by early next year, but it's having trouble finding a place to put it. The health authority went out and asked for proposals from industry, and the results were way too expensive.
The RFP was considerably higher than the budget allotted for the urgent care. So I know that the Provincial Health Authority has gone back to the drawing board. They will be reissuing a tender for urgent care in the province, but we are still dedicated to the timelines in establishing that urgent care.
Well, meanwhile, the Progressive Conservatives aren't convinced that spring of next year is still achievable, considering this new speed bump.
Those who are suffering are still those individuals who are sitting in the hallways of the emergency centres still waiting to get care. So they're delayed again. They're delayed again because this whole process was to ease the burden on our emergency departments.
This request for proposals is just to find a physical space. The next challenge for government will be finding the people to staff it, especially considering there are already hundreds of vacant positions. Peter Cowan, CBC News, St. John's.
Allied Health says it's reached an impasse in contract talks with the province. The union represents more than 24 different healthcare groups, and it says the government wasn't willing to move on wages. So the union is now filing for conciliation and even preparing for a strike. Here Now's Heather Gillis reports.
It's about getting the right agreement.
Gordon Piercy is president of Allied Health Professionals. He represents about 800 licensed healthcare workers, everything from pharmacists to physiotherapists, psychologists, social workers, the flight team, and respiratory therapists. After a meeting with government last night, he says their talks for a new collective agreement stalled.
During that exchange, that conversation, we decided that we were very far apart on a number of key issues.
Wages are the biggest issue. The union wants a new wage grid. In a memo the union sent to members last night, they wrote government was not willing to make any significant movement towards our wage proposals. The provincial government says it successfully negotiated new collective agreements with 4 unions in the province. 3 of them, NAPE, CUPE, and nurses, each got a 2% raise a year over 4 years, a signing bonus, and other contract improvements. Piercy won't say if his union will accept something similar.
Our members are looking for fairness, especially when we look at, comparative work that we're doing. And that is, all those things are key points for us. And we are striving for that. A strong a competitive collective agreement is probably the best recruitment and retention tool that we can ever hope to have.
Piercy says the job landscape for his members is competitive and says the healthcare system here is competing with other provinces to keep workers and also competing with the local private sector. He says work conditions and workloads are also issues and that they're even preparing for the last resort, a possible strike.
We feel right now that we're fighting for the healthcare system. we're as invested in this as every other resident in the province is. So it's the last thing that we want to do, but I will tell you, the members are motivated and they are mobilizing.
In a statement, the finance minister says the government is still trying to reach an agreement with Allied Health. The union says they'll file for conciliation this week, and with the help of a neutral third party, they're still hoping to get a new contract. Heather Gillis, CBC News, St. John's.
Now to the Middle East. Israeli airstrikes continue to pound Gaza today, 5 days after Hamas launched a deadly surprise assault on Israel. Israel's military says it's attacking Hamas from land, sea, and air. Fighter jets have struck more than 200 targets in a neighborhood where Hamas is launching attacks. Palestinian officials say Israel has also attacked a city in the south and a refugee camp in central Gaza. Officials say at least 900 people are dead and thousands more are wounded. Meantime, humanitarian workers in Gaza are warning of a worsening situation, with supplies running out amid a tightening blockade on food, fuel, and medicines by Israel. Aid groups are pushing to open a humanitarian corridor into Gaza.
Hey, I'm Tom Power. I'm the host of Q on CBC Radio 1. I tell you, I'm used to asking questions. I'm going to sit down and answer some questions posed to me by my good friend Carolyn Stokes. I'm so excited to be on Here and Now. I can't begin to tell you, and you can watch our interview tomorrow.
Well, it was a beautiful day in parts of the province. Campbell's Creek is a perfect example of that. What a beautiful afternoon. Lots of sunshine out there after quite a bit of rain yesterday. Mark shared that photo with me today. And, you know, some of us still did see the sun. We've got most of really the southwestern portion of the province seeing that sunshine. But we're still hanging on to that cloud cover in the east, lots of gray sky this afternoon and up across Labrador as well. And that will really be the story as we head through the next couple of days. As we take a look at the satellite, or as the radar, I should say, still a few showers around the Avalon at the moment. And again, a few showers will continue as we head through tonight. This area of low pressure has been pretty much sitting there for the last couple of days. And that's going to be our weather maker as we head towards the weekend. Certainly into Saturday, this is very slow moving, but it is going to bring some rain, which will likely be heavy at times for most of us as we head through Saturday. I'll get into all the details when I come back.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, the people of Glovertown haven't seen this many bears in the community since the dump closed about 10 years ago. But bears are everywhere these days, and the town is doing what it can to deal with it. Here and Now's Troy Turner has more.
No shortage of bears or people with stories about them.
My wife Lila and I were sitting down having our lunch, and we looked out the window, and sauntering up the road was this big bear. He was a bigger one, I guess, the mother bear, right? Came up here, strolled around, and then he went over to Dad's, and obviously there was apples around.
Phil Riggs has seen his share of bears over the years. This month, however, there seems to be more than ever.
I was a bit surprised when I seen the first one, right? Although I'd heard lots of reports about him around. But this is the first time that I had seen one when he came up here, right? And then I was really surprised later on in the afternoon when there was two cubs that came. And, you know, sauntered all around. Now, the big fella, or the big girl, I should say, she came up like she owned the place.
The town has been hearing about the bears for weeks now. It's working with the provincial wildlife department to make people bear aware.
It can be pretty alarming because, you know, again, just almost at the same time that the bears were reported in Glovertown, there was the report on the news, of course, of a couple of people being killed and mauled and killed with black bears. So, you know, there is that kind of concern that I think is in the community, and everybody is a little bit concerned.
There's been no need for panic, says the mayor, and the town is trying to get the word out on bear education.
The attractants are the fruit trees, you know, this time of year, the ripe fruit, garbage, you know, so people could collect the garbage, keep it, you know, indoors somewhere in some kind of a storage container. That would be, you know, kind of bear-proof, I guess, more than anything.
Wildlife has set up traps around the community, hoping to reduce the number of bears roaming the streets.
I think people are getting a little bit close to them sometimes, which may be a little bit dangerous if you got a bear and a cub. Apparently, that's the word. So, yeah, you got to be a little bit careful, right?
I think it's a big concern because on this particular road, just down here, the Plant Road, I mean, there's an awful lot of small kids. So it's got to be a worry, because, I mean, you don't know when you're going to encounter them. Yeah, so I think it's a real worry.
The mayor says the town will keep in contact with the wildlife department and follow their lead on what's need to be done to keep the number of bears in check. In the meantime, everyone is hoping traps such as this one are filled. Troy Turner, CBC News, Glovertown.
Well, some sports advocates in Labrador are frustrated and disappointed after only one athlete from the region received a Provincial Excellence Award. Earlier this month, 126 athletes were recognized by the Premier. The only athlete from Labrador on that list was Allison Thomas from Lansa-Clare. Now, the province says the awards are nomination-based, but critics say more information should have been communicated to Labrador sports organizations.
We deal with our young athletes being overlooked, not recognized at all, because nobody is getting that information to them. And, there was a comment on social media about this being available on the website, the information being there. Well, yeah, that's fine. We're not cruising the website looking for awards and accolades for our athletes because we're too damn busy fundraising to get them out to competitions.
Well, today is the last day the public can weigh in on a controversial wind to hydrogen mega project in western Newfoundland. World Energy GH2 wants to put hundreds of wind turbines at sites on the west coast of the island. Its environmental assessment is currently before the provincial government. Here and Now's Colleen Connors has this update.
There were 4,000 pages of documents to sift through, and people had less than 2 months to do it. World Energy GH2's environmental impact statement was submitted to the province on August 22nd. And for some opponents of the project, the days from then until now, deadline day, have flown by.
It's hard to look at this process and say that it's fair.
Manuel is part of a group who are against the mega project. World Energy wants to put 328 wind turbines in the Port-au-Port region and in the Codroy Valley, and a large processing plant in Stephenville, where hydrogen produced by the wind turbines will be converted to ammonia. She has major issues with the way the government is handling the approval.
The public have been given a month and a half to analyze a 4,000-page technical document and provide comments. That is not possible. The process is stacked against the people very clearly.
Her group, EnviroWatch NL, submitted a detailed statement, but she doesn't believe anyone will read her concerns.
It's going to disrupt communities, people's lives. It will deforest and disrupt the natural ecology of the Port-au-Port. The Port-au-Port is home to the French people of Newfoundland and Mi'kmaq people of Newfoundland who've been there for hundreds of years. This will disrupt their way of life, and it will impact irrevocably on their homeland.
She believes the government has already given this project the green light. So she's holding an online public forum tonight to talk about dangers surrounding mega projects like this one. Among possible environmental impacts World Energy GH2 listed are things like groundwater quality, bird and other wildlife habitats, and human health and quality of life. If approved, the company wants to begin the construction the end of this year. As for that government approval, the Environment Department is reviewing the company's environmental impact statement. The department told CBC the minister considers all public comments prior to making project decisions. There is an environmental assessment committee in place with representation from all levels of government, who are experts in various components of the project. And that committee is providing technical and regulatory advice to the minister. The Environment Minister is slated to make their decision on this project the end of this month, October 31st. Manuel says regardless of the decision, her group will continue to speak out about their environmental concerns about this mega project. She says there's even some peaceful marches in the works. Colleen Connors, CBC News, Corner Brook.
Gearing up for a disappointment that it wasn't going to happen. And then her next paragraph said, we have booked our flights and we're coming for 3 days.
A reunion 42 years in the making. Long-distance pen pals for decades, one in this province, the other in Japan, finally got the chance to meet face-to-face.
Golf courses in Newfoundland are just about to close for the summer season, but disc golfers are ready to go all year long.
I feel like the sky's the limit with disc golf.
I'm Alex Kennedy, and we'll hit the disc golf course coming up on Here and Now.
Well, the weather over the past couple of days, kind of what you see is what you get, but we do have some more rain on the way, especially as we head towards the weekend. I'll break it all down for you when I come back in a few minutes.
Well, Ashley, another gray one here in the east, but that picture you showed earlier from the west coast looked like it was a beautiful sunny day out there.
Yeah, some of us saw some sunshine today. Unfortunately, that will not be the story going forward. We may see a few breaks in the cloud cover here and there over the next couple of days, but overall, things are going to stay gray for the most part. The other thing that's not really moving is our temperatures. Today, a little bit warmer in some cases, though, about 14 degrees in St. John's is the daytime high, 17 in Gander, and really all along the southwest coast, southwestern portion of the island, I should say, where you saw the sunshine, you saw some nicer temperatures. And up across Labrador, hanging on to those temperatures just barely in the double digits, 11 degrees in Lab City, but only about 6 degrees in Nain this afternoon. So if we take a look at what that temperature change from yesterday, so we are seeing some warmer temperatures, about 5 or 6 degrees for the northern peninsula, southeastern portions of Labrador, but otherwise we're up about a degree or 2 or even 3 across a good chunk of the island. Those temperatures haven't really moved much as we head into the evening hours here now, about 13 degrees in St. John's, down to the single digits across Labrador, and it is going to be a chilly night for some of us, especially with some clear, calm conditions expected. So what we have going on the map, I haven't really moved this area of low pressure at all this week. It's pretty much staying there, but that is going to be our weather maker. It's very slow moving, but it's going to head east as we head through the day tomorrow, and then eventually as we head into Friday night into early Saturday morning. But right now we can see some of that tropical, or the moisture, I should say, from the west coast has headed east today. Not a whole lot of rain associated with that, but we did see a few showers. Definitely still seeing those fog patches out there. But in behind that, definitely ridge of high pressure taking place. And that's why we are seeing that sunshine today. Now, as we head through the night tonight, a generally quiet night. In fact, most of us should be seeing partly cloudy skies. These fog patches will likely develop, though, through portions of central, staying in that onshore flow for the Avalon and along the northeast coast. So you'll still expect to see some drizzle, patchy drizzle especially, and some fog patches through the overnight tonight. That will be the story up across Labrador as well, as your skies stay generally clear. But as we head into the morning hours, we'll see some more showers developing for the southwestern corner of the province. Your temperatures tonight will dip into the single digits, especially in low-lying areas with those cool, calm conditions. Clear, calm conditions, I should say, about 11 degrees in St. John's overnight. That will be the warm spot. And then Labrador, you're looking at between 4 and 9 degrees as your daytime highs. So taking a look at the future tracker, it may start a little bit with some sunshine, but the clouds will fill in as the day goes on. Also looking at that chance of a few showers as the day goes on as well, especially up across Labrador and especially into the evening hours. Now, going forward into Friday morning, some periods of rain potentially developing across Labrador, but that main event on Friday, like I said, will be late day, and we're going to see those showers or periods of rain move in by the time we get into late Friday afternoon, and then really start to see those showers move in by Friday supper hour. So as far as rainfall amounts go, another round, it looks like, of potentially 50 plus millimeters in some cases. This is early indications, but that chance is certainly still there. I'm going to keep an eye on that for you. Your temperatures tomorrow will be fairly similar to what we're seeing today in the east, maybe definitely a bit cooler for those of you in the west, topping out at about 10 degrees in Corner Brook tomorrow afternoon. And coastal areas of Labrador, most of you will be seeing those single digits, and the west as well. Otherwise, we'll be hovering between 10 to about 15 degrees. So let's look at your forecast for your Thursday. We'll look ahead to the weekend when I come back.
A Carbonear woman had the trip of a lifetime last month. Joy Loveys traveled to Hawaii to be part of her daughter's big day, but she also used the trip to connect with a lifelong pen pal in person, a childhood friend from Japan. As you're about to hear, it's a meeting that Loveys has been trying to arrange for decades.
Well, back in 1981, I got a form letter from an organization called International Friendship Club, and I kept all of her letters and mementos in. But it was essentially a form letter that had her address there for me to reply to if I was interested in becoming a pen pal. There was a show on at the time in the 80s called Thrill of a Lifetime. Well, I must have written 3 letters to Thrill of a Lifetime, trying to get somebody to help me, meet her. And then I tried Oprah, and Oprah had no interest in helping me. A year ago, my daughter and her fiance, they got engaged, and they decided that they would get married in Hawaii, which ironically is where Chaco had gotten married. The end of July or early August, I was just chatting with her just for another reason. I mentioned, I said, I understand it's really expensive to travel to Hawaii. So I guess you can't come. And she started out her reply with kind of apologies for being so delayed in replying. And she had mentioned that there were some things that were happening that she was having to deal with. So I was, gearing up for a disappointment that it wasn't going to happen. And then her next paragraph said, we have booked our flights and we're coming for 3 days from September 4th to the 7th. And they could only stay for the 3 days. So essentially she was making the trip just for our meeting. And I was overwhelmed. This is something that we had dreamed about for 42 years. And I guess part of me was afraid that it wasn't going to be as good as in my head I had imagined that it could be. It was better. It surpassed. I was not at all prepared for how overwhelmed we would both feel with the emotion of meeting somebody that we had never met, but yet that she was a part of my life for so many years. And the depth of the emotion was just it was unexpected and just it was overwhelming. She was explaining to me that when she was in junior high, she was having a tough time, like a lot of, junior high students do. And so she said when she would come home from school and there would be a letter from Canada, that would really make her day. So it was really nice to know that, that these letters may have helped her even more than I had realized. When she retires in 4 or 5 years, that she can come here and stay with us here in Carbonear for hopefully we're still here for vacation, and that will be our next dream to realize.
Oh, what a nice story. Well, golfers in Newfoundland are getting ready to put their clubs away after a summer season on the course, but disc golfers on the West Coast say the fun is only beginning. Here Now's Alex Kennedy got a lesson in disc golf and found out what brings players to courses across the island all year round.
If you can handle being outside, you can play disc golf. Yeah, generally a sport that's very, generally very accessible, and with that, being the winter seasons, being a very, very possible to have your disc golf season run year round. Yeah. In disc golf, you just have discs, frisbee-like discs that you are trying to throw towards a target. And instead of the target being a hole, you're using these things we call baskets, which are have these kind of chain meshes above them, which are there to catch the discs and drop it in safely. So it's similar in theory to practice to ball golf, and easy to understand for anyone who understands the basics of traditional golf. And then you're going to kind of pull through with your elbow bending like that, and then snapping there. So flick of the wrist is the last thing. Big muscles to little muscles. So you're turning and then getting your hips lead, elbow bent, snapping your wrist like that.
Okay, well, I was going to say, here goes nothing.
With anything, I feel like the sky's the limit with disc golf. It's such an accessible sport that's easy to fit in with the environment. We have so much available space to kind of build something like this. Like people living in cities are jealous of the land that we have available. To have a disc golf course of this quality, this close to the number of services and resources we have is the envy of a lot of people around the world.
A few years ago, with the pandemic raging, there was some very real talk that this massive oil project would be abandoned. Today, West White Rose is in full bloom here in Argentia, with nearly 1,000 people, mostly locals, making it happen.
A lot of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians working on this project, a lot of pride in their work, and we've had tremendous success.
That story coming up.
As we heard earlier, some people in Labrador are frustrated that only one of the 126 athletic awards handed out by Premier Andrew Furey earlier this month was given to an athlete from Labrador. It was awarded to ball hockey player Allison Thomas from Lansa-Clare. A Labrador sports enthusiast and fundraiser says this is a long-standing pattern of Labradorians being left out.
I read up a bit on the Premier's Athletic Awards, and I know it's nomination based, but at the same time, it doesn't seem that there's anybody with the province who's reaching out to these local sporting groups and sporting organizations and governing bodies and saying, look, there's some awards here. You can be recognized, you can have your athletes recognized through this venue. But it has to be a nomination process. My thoughts would be, okay, if this is a nomination process, then somebody from the province should be contacting the local organizations, be it the schools, the Indigenous organizations, the people on the ground who see this on a regular basis and who are dealing with these athletes. But there hasn't been any of those communications. And if you go onto the website for Sport NL, there's a board of directors there. There's not one member of the board of directors from Labrador. There's multiple staff for Sport NL. There's no office, no contact information for anybody with Sport NL in Labrador. That is very frustrating, but not surprising. So my problem with a lot of this is, why isn't there Labrador representation on organizations like this? Lab and Ab Affairs got a division down there. Why isn't there somebody from Labrador and Aboriginal Affairs responsible for getting this information to the hockey associations, to the soccer associations, to the volleyball associations? We deal with our young athletes being overlooked, not recognized at all, because nobody is getting that information to them. And, there was a comment on social media about this being available on the website, the information being there. Well, yeah, that's fine. We're not cruising the website looking for awards and accolades for our athletes, because we're too damn busy fundraising to get them out to competitions, to get them out to tryouts. It happens on a regular basis. The different sports basically have to call people out. You have to call out the divisions to say, why isn't there a tryout here for this? And it's only when they're called out that they say, yeah, I guess we better go to Labrador and do something about this. The provincial games, the Canada games, it's been a constant thing. It's like, I feel like a broken record, because we're constantly doing this.
Well, the province wouldn't do an interview on this. A statement from the Tourism, Culture, Arts and Recreation Department says the awards are application-based. Those applicants are then reviewed by sports groups and by the province before recommendations are made to the minister. Well, now to the fishery. Jim Wellman, one of the province's foremost experts on the fishery, is set to deliver a new talk tonight. It's called The Newfoundland and Labrador Fishery, the Good, the Not So Good, and the Bad. Wellman is a former host of CBC Radio's The Broadcast, and he sat down with current host Paula Gale to talk about how changes in technology affect the fishing industry.
Because you would think that with all the technology now, you would have fewer fatalities at sea. We have, for probably 60 years or more, we've been losing, in Atlantic Canada, I don't have just Newfoundland numbers, in Atlantic Canada, we've been losing about one person per month on average. Now, the two tragedies that you just referenced in Newfoundland in the last month, there was 3 and 3 people died. So on each incident, we lost 3 people. So that's 6. So that adds up to 6 months, if you will, of your average. And that's one of the reasons that in the fishing industry you have such a high incidence of losing one person a month in Atlantic Canada. It doesn't take long to add up to 12. Within 2 weeks span, last month we had a half year's, of tragedy. So, and there are different reasons for it now. There's not as many collisions as there used to be, running up on a rock or running into a cliff or a headland or something. It's not much of that because GPS now, you know exactly where you are all the time. I mean, the technology in the wheelhouse of a 35-footer is pretty much the equivalent to what's on a cruise ship, that sort of thing. But one of the other things that I find it's really interesting is that in the fishing industry, when there's loss of life, very often the body is not recovered because it's at sea. I mean, accidents, tragedy on the land, bodies are recoverable in most cases. Without a body, without proof, if I could use that word, for the families, for the people grieving, without that, there's no closure, or at least there can't be ever total closure.
Well, it's Child Abuse Awareness Month, and today on The Signal, host Adam Walsh spoke with Dr. Sandra Luscombe, the head of the Janeway's Child Protection Program.
We know that when you experience trauma from a young age, it does look somewhat different. So we call it developmental trauma disorder. And what we do know is that these kids who have experienced what we call adverse childhood experiences, whether it be psychological, physical, sexual abuse, or general household dysfunction because of domestic violence or substance abuse, these kids experiencing this have a change that doesn't just happen that one time and then they get over it. These experiences change the way their brains are functioning. It changes how their immune system functions. It changes how their hormonal systems function. So it makes sense if you have a child who's been abused, they're going to have perhaps, more issues with mental health issues and going to school if they're living in a very unsafe environment. And then if they didn't go to school, that's going to lead to other issues. But it's not just those obvious things. It's actually studies have been done that show that kids who have experienced trauma actually have a higher risk of heart disease and a higher risk of COPD and a higher risk of cancer. And how does that even make sense? A higher risk of diabetes. And even when you take out the fact, the other factors that may be associated with those diseases, so people who've experienced trauma but had all the money that they could, didn't have some other factors that maybe would lead them to having medical problems. We know that there's a direct response between having experienced early childhood trauma and cancer, and that's because we know that it does affect your brain. It actually changes how your DNA is replicated, and it changes how your DNA gets repaired, so your genetic material. So we know all of that, and we know the cost of not doing something.
Well, this was how it looked outside Her Majesty's Penitentiary this afternoon as some workers and government employees waited to get behind the walls. The prison was locked down today because of what the Justice Department is calling a disturbance. One inmate has minor injuries. In a statement, the department says the safety of staff and inmates is a priority and the prison is back to regular routine. In the midst of a national healthcare crisis, provincial and territorial health ministers began a two-day series of meetings in Charlottetown, PEI today. The CBC's Carrie Campbell has more.
It's unfortunate that, this wasn't dealt with, 10, 15 years ago.
The host of the conference, Mark McLean, there talking about PEI's supply of doctors failing to keep up with population growth, but the same could be said about many of the healthcare problems that reached a crisis point as a result of the COVID pandemic.
We learn a great deal from each other. So, for instance, some of the programs in Alberta are very interesting and are great for the things that we can do in the province of Ontario.
In a joint statement yesterday, 4 groups representing doctors and nurses in Canada said health ministers should leave this conference tomorrow with a clear commitment to urgent action, saying Canadians facing overcrowded ERs and struggling to access care are losing hope in their healthcare system.
It really is a numbers game. We just simply don't have enough people working in our healthcare system.
Today, the CMA toured one of PEI's new collaborative care clinics where doctors work as part of a healthcare team. On the island, they're called medical homes. Whatever you call them, the CMA told health ministers today all Canadians should be able to access them.
Family health teams, we call them primary care networks inside of British Columbia, all of these pockets of excellence across the country, but we don't have universal access.
Nurses, meanwhile, are using their chance to talk to the ministers to warn against further privatization, specifically the use of expensive private agency nurses to fill vacant shifts.
Public dollars for healthcare to go into private agencies is losing a huge chunk of money that we need to put into investing into our own publicly delivered health system.
The union says almost a third of nursing positions in PEI are vacant. The conference host says Canada has to train more healthcare workers or import them from abroad rather than have provinces try to outbid each other for existing workers.
I know with my Atlantic counterparts, we talk about it on a regular basis. I use the term net gain. What can we do as a group for net gains in human resources?
There are calls for Ottawa and the provinces to ratify healthcare funding agreements reached earlier this year, something BC just announced yesterday. The suggestion being that those agreements will point towards solutions to the healthcare crisis that the billions in extra funding will help pay for. The federal health minister arrived here today to take part in tomorrow's meetings. Carrie Campbell, CBC News, Charlottetown.
Violence is escalating along Israel's northern border with Lebanon. Israeli shelling hit some southern Lebanese towns in the early morning hours. Israel says it shelled military targets in retaliation for attacks by Hezbollah in the north. Officials say 3 people were injured on the ground in Lebanon. Some houses and a mosque were damaged. Hezbollah says it fired precise missiles at Israeli positions in response to some of the killing of some of its members earlier in the week. The militant group Hezbollah is based in southern Lebanon. The biggest oil company in the United States is buying one of its largest competitors. ExxonMobil is paying nearly $60 billion U.S. for Pioneer Natural Resources. The deal is the biggest buyout by Exxon since it acquired Mobil in 1998. It creates a huge fracking operation in the largest oil field in the U.S., which straddles the Texas-New Mexico border. The takeover is seen as a show of Exxon's commitment to fossil fuels, even as governments and consumers continue to push for cleaner, renewable energy. There are updated guidelines for the NHL surrounding theme nights. Players are now banned from using Pride tape and other themed tapes on their sticks. Cameron McIntosh explains what's behind this change and why some say it's a step backwards.
A symbol of inclusivity now benched, it appears, for good. Rainbow-colored stick tape, pride tape.
Very disappointing to hear this news coming from the NHL.
Chris Wells is co-founder of Pride Tape. Invented, he says, to promote inclusion. It was used on occasion on all 32 NHL teams.
It's never been forced. It's just been available for players to signal their support without having to say any words.
Pride Tape was first used by the Edmonton Oilers and counts the game's biggest name among its advocates.
Is it something that that I'd like to see put back into place one day? Certainly.
It stems from an announcement last June. The NHL decided to discontinue the use of themed warm-up jerseys after a handful of players refused to wear pride jerseys, some citing religious and cultural objections.
That's just become more of a distraction from really the essence of what the purpose of these nights are.
It's not just Pride Tape. Other on-ice displays like pink tape or pink hockey sticks for cancer initiatives or camouflage tape in support of military nights also won't continue.
There's been a lot of collateral damage in this discussion.
David Palumbo is with You Can Play, dedicated to LGBTQ plus inclusion in sport.
Unfortunately, I can't sit here and tell you that, a lot of this is because someone has expressed concern over using camo tape to express support for military families or refuses to wear a Hockey Fights Cancer jersey.
Many teams will still go ahead with their Pride Nights. Winnipeg's game will go next month.
The commitment, from an organization standpoint is we'll do everything we possibly can.
The NHL didn't respond to a request for comment, but has said many times in the past that it supports diversity and inclusion. Its players just won't be showing it on the ice. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Hey, I'm Tom Power. I'm the host of Q on CBC Radio 1. I tell you, I'm used to asking questions. I'm going to sit down and answer some questions posed to me by my good friend Carolyn Stokes. I'm so excited to be on Here and Now. I can't begin to tell you, and you can watch our interview tomorrow.
Well, there are a lot of people who like to decorate for Halloween, and some go big.
Yep, just like Tim Perry, when it comes to the marking of the haunted holiday, he's just rocking it. Take a look.
It's what I live for, Halloween. It's the best.
Inspired by his favorite horror movie, House of a Thousand Corpses, Perry has spent 15 years creating the House of a Thousand Pumpkins. He hand-carved the plastic gourds.
Wow, my goodness, that's a lot of pumpkins. Each one has a rock and roll theme to match his favorite music, and he takes about a week to set up and wire the display. By the time he's done this year, he expects to have nearly 1,400 pumpkins arranged on his front lawn. My goodness, that's a lot of work. A very fall-themed story, Ashley, to match the fall weather.
Certainly is. That is a lot of pumpkins. Very impressive. But yes, lots of fall weather out there. Well, more spring-like weather, really. These onshore winds along with drizzle and fog is typically what we see in spring. But for now, we're looking at lots more rain on the way, especially as we head into Friday morning and then eventually into the afternoon hours as that area of low pressure finally starts to move this way, and it's going to bring a lot of moisture with it. So we're talking about that heavy rain moving in late day. Our daytime highs will be somewhere in the teens for most of us, between about 13 to about 15 degrees. Cooler for the northern peninsula, only in the single digits, and that's the story up across Labrador as well, as you'll see your showers move in late day as well. Now, as we head into Friday evening and into Saturday, this is when we should see an even bigger push of some of that rain. Like I showed you a little earlier, we're talking about the potential for upwards of 50 plus millimeters of rain, particularly for the southwestern portion of the province. Bit of disagreement on just how much rain falls, but it will be a significant amount, looks like at this point. Expecting that rain to continue right through Saturday evening. Some of the heavier showers moving in for the eastern portion of the island as well along the northeast coast. And we'll see that rain push north as we head into the evening hours across Labrador as well. Most of you across the Big Land will be seeing that shower activity, especially for southeastern portions. As you head west, you'll stay gray, and the best chance of seeing the sun will actually be for northern portions of Labrador. Temperatures status quo, not really moving a whole lot. Still somewhere between 14 and 15 degrees with those single digits towards the coast. The long range forecast, not really moving a whole lot. Now, Saturday evening, we may start to see some clearing, and Sunday and Monday looks a little nicer as far as the potential for some sunshine goes, but we're still talking about daytime highs between 12 and 14 degrees as we get to the weekend. And for central Newfoundland, gray skies pretty much until Monday. Western Newfoundland, you will likely see a break by the time we get into Monday with your temperature hovering around 8 degrees, so it is going to cool down. Your overnight lows are flirting with 0 as well. And then for the eastern portion of Labrador, down to the single digits again, mid-single digits, both Sunday and Monday with those periods of rain in play. And for western Labrador, you'll see a break by the time you get into Monday. But yeah, your overnight lows down to the single digits, minus single digits. That's where you should be sitting for this time of year. Now, I've asked you for your fall-like photos, your beautiful fall colors. This is in Swift Current, and Patrick shared this lovely shot with us. If you have any that you would like to share with us, you can send them to my Facebook page, but the best place is to email them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Oh, that is a great shot. Beautiful colors. And the leaves are starting to come down now too in the driveway. My dog goes nuts for leaves, like chases after the leaves. So we're getting into that
I'm sure.
season now where we have to keep a short leash on her.
Oh, that's no fun.
I know. She loves it though. Well, that's it for us. Tomorrow is Thursday. My goodness.
Yep, we're
Week
already
is
there.
Flying by. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone.